Hello humans, welcome back to another Engage video, and by very high and popular demand, I'm covering all the unique classes in the game in this one. Because these classes are only available on a single unit, I'm going to do it a little bit differently this time, so the way I'm going to do it is by actually covering the lords themselves, what their total growths are in the class, what unique skills they get, and whether or not they're worth keeping in the class or better off being reclassed elsewhere. Also, I want to hear your opinions in the comments below. These classes seem to have generated some contention lately, and I always learn stuff from you guys in the comments, so yeah, let me know what you think and, if I missed anything. And while you're down there, leave a like too to help this video do well. Also, just quickly before I start, there's going to be one spoiler class that I'll leave until the very end, and I'll mark it and timestamp it and give you a warning before it comes, but I'm also giving you a heads up now. It's just one unit, so you can skip that at the end when the time comes. I got you. Alright, let's start off with our first main lord, Alear. Alear starts off in the Dragon Child class with the following total growths, as you can see on screen. At level 10, you can promote him into Divine Dragon, and his growths will increase by 5% in defense, resistance, and luck. And that's pretty much it. If you're trying to weigh your options as to who benefits the most from promotions growths-wise, Alear only gets it defensively, so you can wait a little bit on his promotion, that's fine. However, if you're trying to make your Alear an offensive monster, he does get the class skill Divine Spirit. This skill shortens your engage meter by 1 step, meaning that your Alear will charge it up faster and be able to engage. Like all class skills, you gain access to this at level 5 after you promote. The class itself is honestly nothing too special. You do get access to fists, which Alear has a proficiency for some odd reason. The growths are pretty balanced across the board, and the skill, while nice, only really speeds up your charge by 1. I think you could probably reclass Alear into something else. A slightly better side grade to me looks like Swordmaster to make use of his already high speed growth, and he doesn't really lose any strength. The hero class also works, and it lets him make use of chain attacks with Brave Assist. I'm also a little bit biased on this next pick, but if you're willing to let go of his liberation and use a different weapon type, Warrior will help prop up his strength growth while maintaining a decent speed growth as well. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that the growths don't really matter here since there'll be marginal differences at best, but the class change to his bases will be more important, as well as the skills that they bring. If you want to reclass Alear into one of the other generic classes, you can without worrying, and if you want more details on them, well, I have an entire video about those classes that you can check, link in the description below. Next up is Alfred, who has been a major talking point recently, mostly from people saying he falls off really quickly. At a first glance, Alfred's growths are actually not bad at all, they're just average across the board in everything but defense and luck. His unique class, likewise, focuses up on growing his strength, defense, and luck, as shown on your screen with 5% increases to speed, defense, and luck on promotion. The main issue with Alfred's unique class is, like many on this list, his ability to take advantage of the unique skill that the class brings. Golden Lotus triggers as a percentage chance depending on his dexterity value. This is a problem for 2 reasons. The first is that Alfred's lowest growth after resistance is his dexterity, which only grows at a 40% rate, which means that if you promote him at level 10 and then get him to level 20, he's going to have a total of 20 dex on average by that point. This gives him only a 20% chance to trigger, which isn't that reliable, and even at the dexterity cap, you're stuck at around 33. The other issue is his defense. Sure, the class gives him pretty good defense growths of 65% total, but by the time he reaches level 10-20, the defense is only hitting 25, which isn't super high either. It seems like the attempt to make Alfred a tank falls a bit flat, and if you really want him to tank, just make him a general. Heck, even the Great Knight class will have better physical tankiness at a more consistent rate due to the base defense boost when you reclass. In my opinion, the Avenir class gets a certified fail, but if you know something I don't, or if I've missed something, feel free to change my mind in the comments. Following Alfred is his sister Celine, and yes, I remember you all getting upset at my mispronunciation in the Jean video, but this one feels like they're the ones mispronouncing it, so I'm going to default to what I know, because from my personal experience, that's just what people who have that name pronounce it as. Anyways, this conversation is about classes, so let's talk about hers. Celine is one of those early game units who I thought was going to be a monster for me due to the fact that she comes with the Emblem Celica and was one-shotting enemies with her high base magic. But her noble class doesn't really increase her growths by much, as you can see on the totals on screen. The problem here is that she really wants to be a jack of all trades, mixed magic and physical unit, but that doesn't really work in this game because these units end up with mixed magic and physical growths and bases leading to average or below average stats in each category, and that's precisely the case here. She comes with a base 35% strength growth that goes to 45% in her promoted class, and a 25% base magic that goes to 40% in her promoted class, which honestly isn't anything to write home about. Her one saving grace is that she can use the Levin sword, but that sword is great on anyone and isn't unique to her really. She also does get staff access at B rank here, which is great for utility. You can really never have enough staff users in this game. And the main standout thing about her unique class though is the Ignis skill. Adding half of magic or strength to damage based on what type of damage you're using is really strong because it adds a flat, unmitigated number to your final damage, which makes a massive difference at higher levels since you can be getting upwards of 10 damage added on. The problem with this, like Alfred and honestly almost every single unique class, is that the skill is going to have this. It triggers off dexterity. Even though Celine has the highest luck growth in the game, for some reason they decided that that doesn't matter and they want to make her skill trigger off dex instead. Either way, her dex cap is 29, which is fairly low, if you can even hit it, and if you want to use the combo of sword and magic, I just reclass her into Mage Knight. You lose out on staves, but you get one more movement, you get to make use of the mixed bases and growths, and her stat growths will look pretty similar to the Vidame class. You'll end up with a little bit more magic, a bit less strength, a bit more resistance, but otherwise it's pretty much the same across the board. This is a weird unit, and I'll admit there's a few more of them on this list, and I'm not really sure what to do with her, though I guess she also has the same base strength growth as Alear, so you could probably just go full physical with her too, I guess. Following that, we run into someone who is all in on physical with Diamant. Diamant actually has some pretty good base growths across the board, and guess what? His dex is trash. What a surprise. Not only is his dex growth really low, his dex cap is 23, and his unique skill procs off that too. But I digress. Let's do this in order. I'm just really triggered at the skill design and the kit design in this game. Diamant has some great well-rounded growths in strength, speed, and defense, and they're supported further by his unique class as you've been seeing on your screen. His unique class boosts them further by 5% speed, defense, and luck, which is nice, but as is the case with all the classes, nothing earth-shattering. At level 5, you get a fantastic class skill for Diamant, which is Soul. When it procs, you get 55% of the damage you deal healed back as HP, and he's the only unit in the entire game who can do this without an emblem engaged. The problem is, like I alluded to earlier, is that his stat cap is 23 for dex. If he even hits it in the first place, because his dex growth is so bad. I don't know what they were thinking with designing the kits of some of these units, especially the lords, and why they can't have their own personal skills be permanent inherits or upgrades at some point in the story. I think they can be pretty good, but they're nothing game-breaking and would help make them stand out a little bit, especially for people whose unique class isn't really that good. Anyways, yeah, Diamant's unique class is okay, and you can honestly keep him in it because his growths and stat caps overall are quite solid, but don't rely on Soul to proc very much. It's inconsistent at best. If you want to class change him, again, any of the physical classes can work for him really because he's very well-rounded, has decent bases, and you can do whatever you want with him. After Diamant, we get a breath of fresh air. Alcryst might be one of the best unique class units in the entire game. His growths aren't anything to write home about aside from his monstrous dex, and you can see his unique class supports that all the way. His strength isn't terrible either as it sits at an average 40%, but his unique class increases his dex, defense, and resistance growths by 5%, which honestly doesn't even really matter in this case. What does matter here is his unique skill, Luna, which has the chance to ignore 50% of an enemy's defense, which means that Alcryst can put a dent in even the highest defense armored units. This skill still procs off dexterity, and this time we actually have a unit with a decent dex stat cap, with Alcryst's being at 41. Thanks to his high growth, he'll actually reach those higher levels of dex, and with an emblem, some stat boosters, or even some food and tonics, you'll be able to get him higher up to have it proccing consistently around 50% of the time. Luna is really powerful, and with the abundance of flying units in the late game, having him as a unique bow class with a skill like Luna is quite the boon. Alcryst was actually the MVP of my run with the most kills, but I'm sure a lot of that was due to the fact that I paired him with my Lin Ring. As a result of that though, I noticed that Luna can proc on every hit of Astral Rain, making his damage with that skill even more busted. Alcryst is fantastic in his unique class, especially with his unique skill, and I honestly wouldn't recommend he go into any other class, although again, you could probably reclass him however you want and he'd still work. We are now in the second half of the unique classes, and with it comes the most amazing and the most disappointing classes. The first one I'm actually conflicted about, and that's Ivy, which might sound odd to say. By virtue of the fact that this class is flying, and it's a mage class, this makes it one of the best classes in the game. But outside of that, Ivy's unique class actually brings very little to the table. Overall, she'll have a great magic and resistance growth with a decent defense growth, making her an interesting unit to use as a tank in some situations, and she also has some fantastic bases, but that's about it. Her classes have access to staves at B rank, and in promotion, she gets S rank tomes, which is honestly huge in terms of providing her utility. However, her unique skill, Grasping Void, is honestly really bad. It triggers off her dex, as we've gotten so used to hearing by now, and like Diamant, Ivy's dex growth might as well be non-existent at a below average 25%, which gets boosted to 30 after her promotion. Her dex cap is also really low at 25, and if that wasn't the final nail in the coffin, the way the skill works kind of sucks. It takes half the enemy's magic stat and adds it to damage, which in Ivy's case honestly rarely matters. Against mages, this might help you one-shot them when you're not doubling, but against melee units, their magic stats are so piss poor that you're really only going to end up getting 2 or 3 extra points in damage at best. I guess this is a blessing in disguise, since the class itself gives a lot of utility and is very unique, since we don't have any other way to get into Mage Flyer outside of the unique classes, and so I'm not upset about it at all. I just feel like her skill was a bit of a wasted opportunity to make Best Girl shine even more than she already does. Ivy is a great unit overall though, and she'll excel in any class you put her in, despite having average growths in pretty much every stat. Her great bases save her, and she has a 25% strength growth, meaning if you want to try her as a mage knight, that could work decently well too. Honestly, now that I think about it, if you want to go full meme and put her in the Berserker class, that's a 55% total strength growth, which is still higher than Boucheron's. After Ivy comes her little sister Hortensia. Hortensia right off the bat has one of the best unique classes in the entire game. Her unique class gives great magic, dex, speed, resistance, and luck growth, and each of those increases by 5% on promotion. She also has access to tomes and staves like Big Sis Ivy, with her proficiency being in staff use over offensive magic. Her only drawback is her really low base magic growth, that even with the added 20% from her unique class only brings her up to a total of 40%. She also has a pretty low base HP alongside her low base magic, so I'm not sure she'll be an offensive juggernaut at any point, but she makes up for this by having some absolutely fantastic staff utility. Being able to use any staff in the game while also being a flying unit gives Hortensia some great mobility and immediately puts her in contention for one of the best support units in the entire game. At level 5, she gains access to the unique World Tree skill, which, say it with me guys, triggers off of the dex stats. Hortensia actually has a decent dex stat though at base, starting at 22 if you instantly promote her, which you should. And with a dex growth of 50% in her base class and a cap of 36, it's not unreasonable to say that she'll be proccing this skill about once every 3 staff uses, which is really nice when you get there. Pair her with the Micaiah emblem and you've got an absolutely cracked staff support unit, and she honestly might have the best unique class in the entire game. And if it wasn't already hard enough to follow that act, let me tell you about the worst unique class in the entire game, and that is Timerra's. I was honestly crushed when I saw what Timerra's details were. I really liked her in the build-up to the game's release, and I was looking forward to using her, but Intelligent Systems did her so dirty that she might as well just not be a royal at all. Timerra is baffling. She has low offensive stat growths with decent dex and speed and above average defense and resistance, but her growths seem oddly spaced out. When she promotes to her unique class, she gains the Sandstorm skill. This changes her damage based off 150% of her defense instead of her strength, and yet her Picket class still gives her 15% strength growth instead of dumping all of that into defense. She ends up with a total of 50% defense growth, which isn't bad, and a 55% dex growth, which is great considering she has a dex cap of 47, and a decent base dex to proc her skill off of, but I don't know. Maybe I need to use her more to appreciate it, but the character just seems really odd. It feels like with the strength that low, if she doesn't proc the skill, she's not doing any damage, and with a defense cap of only 33, at best, Sandstorm is only going to bring you up to an equivalent of 49 attack. This isn't bad by any means, because if anyone has seen my Jean video, that's just about as much attack as he had in the Berserker class, but this is only happening 50% of the time if you can hit the dex cap. I don't know, Timerra is a weird unit. Even with the reclass, it's kind of hard to really redeem those terrible strength and magic growths, especially when she comes already at level 18. Let me know if any of you guys have had success using Timerra and are seeing something I'm not, but this one's just confusing to me. I don't really see it. Fogado is Timerra's brother, and unlike her, you can actually tell exactly what he wants to be. Fogado has a very good speed growth, actually the best in the entire game, and this makes him a great unit to use in general. His bases are rock solid, with his only downfall being his strength, which is on the lower end. Luckily for you, Fogado's unique class isn't great. Don't get me wrong, the growths it provides are pretty good, and being a Bonite class giving you extra mobility is great, but move isn't as powerful in this game as it used to be. On promotion, Fogado gains the very middling back at you skill. His dex growth is okay at 50%, meaning he'll trigger this skill every now and then, but because it only works if you've already taken damage and it scales off of half the damage you do take, this means you'll want to put Fogado in danger, which is generally the opposite of what you'd want to do if you're chipping away at enemies from range. I know he gets sword access upon promotion for some more close range combat, but his strength is fairly low in this class and I don't know how much you really want him up in people's faces. Looking at his bases and growths, I actually think Fogado makes a great warrior instead. It not only helps patch up his lower strength growth, but it gives him a massive 6-point boost to his base strength as well, while only hitting his speed by 1 point and 5% in the growth department. This also makes him a backup unit so that he can participate in chain attacks, but it also makes use of his innate bow proficiency to bring it up to B for warriors, letting him use almost every bow in the game, barring the brave bow and the legendary bow. If you haven't caught on yet, I think the warrior class is amazing overall, and a lot of units can be great in it, especially Fogado. Because of his great speed growth, he almost hits the cap just by leveling to level 20 warrior, and looping him around will guarantee he hits it within a few levels. I think Fogado is great, but his true potential lies outside of his relatively average unique class. The last of the non-spoiler classes is the Dancer class, which is unique to Seadall. I'm literally going to talk for less than a minute about this class because there's really not much to say. You should keep him in it no matter what. Seadall should really never be seeing combat and pretty much always dancing. Add to that the unique class skill Special Dance, which buffs your dex, speed, and luck by 3 to units who got danced, and you've got the ultimate support unit here. Seadall can also be refreshed by Byleth's Goddess Dance, and he can dance again after that, bringing the number of actions that a single unit can do in one turn to a total of 5 if you focus on them. Yeah, dancers are amazing. He should be a staple in pretty much every party from the moment you get him, and his growths and bases don't matter, even though they're on screen for the sake of completion. Just use the guy. Alright, this is where I give you the spoiler warning really quickly. Anyone who hasn't gotten to or past chapter 23 and doesn't want to get spoiled on this character recruitment, I'd advise you to skip to the conclusion segment or the time that you're seeing on your screen right now. You have been warned. Spoilers over, we're talking about the Fellchild class here. This is the class that is unique to Vale. The unique thing about Vale is that you recruit her so late, and the game gives you additional deployment slots at that point too, so you're basically going to use her in your party to fill those slots alongside Mavier anyways. Vale comes with the currently unique combination of magic and daggers, and some pretty okay bases for that point in the game. Odds are you'll already have a lot of units who are better than her, but she comes with some unique weapons to her and won't be terrible as a filler unit. The issue with Vale, however, is her base speed of 23 and a build of 7. This means that she's going to be weighed down by the very air she breathes and won't contribute too much to your team outside of chip damage or support. Her Fellchild class gives her okay growths, but getting her that late in the game, it doesn't really matter, as she's level 35 out of her cap of 40, and I don't really anticipate her leveling up much more than that anyways in the chapters to come. Her skill is interesting since it fills engage meter by 1 at the start of each turn, helping her to spam engages more often, but you'll rarely use an engage more than once per battle anyways, twice if you're really pushing it, so her utility is a little bit lower. Add to that the fact that she's locked into daggers and tomes, making her only usable offensively. This class feels kind of odd. The nice thing with Vale is that her strength and magic bases are pretty high, so you can reclass her into any class you want, granted you give her the proper proficiencies, so she'll be able to be usable in any way you want her to. Use her if you want, but if you don't, she's not much of a loss to be honest. She contributed very little on my run and might as well have not been recruitable at all. Heck, maybe it would have made the story better if she died instead. Sorry, Vale fans. And that's a wrap on all the unique classes, which I guess ended up being sort of a character overview for all of them instead. This game has a little bit of flexibility in what you can do, and there isn't really a bad unit anywhere, so have fun with experimenting and feel free to let me know what you found from your own experiences. A lot of these unique classes seem to try and fail at performing a certain niche of skills, and most of these units will fare better in the generic classes anyways, so yeah, that's pretty much it. Make sure you leave a like on your way out, and I'll be back on Wednesday with another video, so I'll see you all very soon. Peace!